We are on the floor at the 2019 New York International Auto Show. Next on Talking Cars. Hey, welcome back. I'm Keith Barry.
I'm Jake Fisher.
And I'm Mike Monticello.
And you might notice our studio looks a little different today. That's because we are here on the show floor of the New York International Auto Show. And we're going to talk just about the cars that we've seen here, cars, trucks, and SUVs we've seen at the show here today. And that's going to be the whole show. And I think that's awesome because there's been some pretty cool stuff. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Awesome. So one of the most interesting cars, I think, for our viewers and CR members is the Highlander. And the Toyota Highlander, it's a real popular car. We've rated it well in the past, and there's a new one, right?
It does well in our tests, and they've redesigned it. And maybe it's not one of the most interesting vehicles because, I mean, you see them all over the place. But no, they're redesigning it. I mean, the styling's a little bit different. It's a little swoopier, if you could say that about a Highlander.
Yeah, I mean, it's got actual, flares and stuff on the side. I mean, there's curves and lines, and it's not, the last one was maybe a little boring to look at, maybe, but this one's definitely not.
Little appliance-like.
Yeah, this one's definitely not boring.
And I think what's interesting also is what they actually changed. I mean, what's underneath the metal is the new hybrid powertrain.
Yeah.
So there was a hybrid before, which is kind of cool when you have a big, kind of mid-sized SUV with 3 rows that you could get decent fuel economy. But they changed the powertrain here. Now, instead of the V6 hybrid, now it's the 2.5 hybrid. They got up to like 240 horsepower now.
And something like, 34 miles a gallon is what Toyota's
They're talking
saying?
about that, but I think that's just when the front-wheel drive version of it. So now there's a front-wheel drive version of it.
And that's a big thing, because it was the Highlander hybrid was always all-wheel drive. And
right.
So now this is for people who live in regions where they maybe don't get any snow, they can get this less expensive.
You still need 3 rows.
Front-wheel drive hybrid. That should get even better fuel economy than the all-wheel drive.
And if you do need the all-wheel drive, I mean, they have that kind of really clever unit for the rear for the all-wheel drive.
Like in the UX, like in the Lexus UX?
Well, in the UX and in the Prius and in the RAV4, all those hybrids where there's no prop shaft, there's just a whole electric unit there. And, it means you're not really hurting your fuel economy very much to get that all-wheel drive. And now, because it is the 2.5, which is similar to, I mean, we had a bunch of top picks with kind of that same engine with the Camry hybrid and the Avalon hybrid. It's going to be better fuel economy, and that's a great powertrain. I would love to see that in the Sienna, honestly. I don't know why we haven't seen a hybrid minivan from Toyota.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
Chrysler has one, right?
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. They updated their infotainment system, and
Finally.
you can finally get Apple CarPlay,
Yes.
Android Auto, which is a big deal for a lot of people. And they even, in the top version, the Platinum, you can get this. It has this 12.3-inch touchscreen, which is the biggest screen Toyota has done to date. So
Bigger screens.
Cool.
We're
So
seeing a lot of that.
Updated all around. The old car was starting to feel a little dated, so I think it's pretty cool. There's a new one out
and they're
there.
saying there's more luggage capacity too, which is always important when you have a 3-row SUV. So
Yep.
Another CR favorite, the Outback, and it debuted amidst Subaru built like a forest.
It actually came out of a volcano. So, I mean, that was the
I missed
introduction.
that. I
You
didn't
missed
get to
it?
see that,
There's a volcano and how that actually emerged from it. Yes. So, I mean, the Outback's really interesting because, again, I don't know how interesting it is because it kind of looks a lot like the old Outback, just like what
that's
Subaru
what they've
does
been doing
with all
now
of them,
for
right?
2 generations. Yeah.
I mean,
but
it's
it's
like
working, so
it
why
works.
change it?
And your neighbors won't know that you got a new car, so you can still look, kind of under the radar.
If it ain't
Don't
broke,
look too
don't
flashy.
fix it. That's their theory.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But there are some changes.
It's kind of no nonsense. I mean, this car appeals outdoorsy people and all that kind of stuff. And there's not a lot of flash, but there are changes there, and it's actual kind of important changes.
Yeah, I mean, so the 6-cylinder horizontally opposed engine is gone, and they replaced it, and that was a good engine, but it was very thirsty for fuel.
That's right.
So they've replaced it with the turbo 4-cylinder that we've seen in the Subaru Ascent.
The
that actually
2.4.
that works very well in the Ascent. So that's the uprated engine getting in the Outback now, and I bet that's going to be a good package.
I bet that'll work based on what we saw with the Ascent. It should work. And there's a bunch of little niceties about it. I mean, we see so much kind of flash and these little gizmos and stuff on these cars. One of the neat things about it is the way that the automatic rear tailgate opens. I don't know if you've seen this, but like you know how like other cars where you have to kick underneath it, and you have to find the right spot, and you're like doing this
It's
little
like a
dance.
dance. It's like a dance.
You look like an idiot because you hit the wrong spot. And then other cars, it's like you walk by it and it's automatically opening up.
Right.
This has got like a little sensor that's right on the Subaru badge. It's proximity, so you sit there and you kind of hit your elbow near it. You know exactly the target to do. It actually works pretty well. I've got to try it.
Like Fonzie with the jukebox.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent.
Exactly. Yes, it's
Very
neat.
cool.
And there's a bunch of other little things. I mean, the rear camera's got a little sprayer to clean it. And actually, that new infotainment system they have, again, big screens, right? They got this real long, which is
it the same one as the Legacy?
It looks like the same one as the Legacy.
It is again 11.6 inches, the biggest screen so far for Subaru. Just like
biggest,
Toyota.
Every automaker.
You got to have the biggest
screen ever. Yes. But the way it works, I really liked because I actually plugged my phone and I tried out the CarPlay.
Oh, cool.
And what's cool about it is because it's got such a big screen, the top part could be CarPlay, and then below it you could have like a radio, so you could have listen to.
So you don't have to switch back and forth.
Like every other car, you have to kind of bounce back between these two environments. I could keep on the FM radio while I use CarPlay, which is kind of cool.
I saw another car that had a split screen optional, and that was the new Hyundai Sonata. Now, that's not the most interesting thing about it. The Sonata's really kind of interesting that Hyundai debuted it here because everything else was SUVs. And it seemed like they really wanted to buck that trend and be like, you know what? We're going to bring out a sedan and we're going to put our best tech and everything on this new sedan.
Right, everyone's saying that sedans are going away, and true, some manufacturers are getting rid of some of their sedans. But this thing, I mean, they're going all in. This thing looks this thing looks great. I mean, it's got this huge grille. It's got lots of angles and lines, and I mean, it's going to stand out from the crowd.
Its chrome trim lights up.
The chrome trim lights up as you go to the front. I mean, it's the first time we've really ever seen this, and it's it's kind of cool. I mean, it really is about style. So it's not, Subaru is all about function. I think, they're real about style. And what's interesting about that, I noticed that the hood goes all the way to the front of the car, like right up to the leading edge, which kind of looks cool, but like in parking,
you get tapped by someone's bumper, and like the radar and the camera are right there.
And you have to replace your hood. Much going away.
We don't need bumpers.
If you look at cars these days, there's like you can't even see the bumper.
Yes.
Yeah. So underneath that giant hood, two new 4-cylinder engines. And also there's one new transmission. It's an 8-speed, and they've got rid of the 6 and the 7 that they had in the prior car. And we had some issues with some of the Hyundais, especially with the turbo engine and some of the prior transmissions. There was kind of a lurchy jerkiness with them.
The dual clutch transmission just really never worked as well as it should have. Especially in the low speed driving. Once you got up to speed, then that's when dual clutch systems seemed to work really well. Quick shifts, good fuel economy. But you know what? I bet this is going to work out much better in the end to have just a traditional 8-speed automatic. We've seen the manufacturers that are almost in a sense going back to a traditional automatic. Usually the drivability is much better.
And they say it's still 33 miles a gallon.
Right.
So we'll find that out. I mean, this is one of these cars we're definitely going to buy. We're going to test.
But there's a problem though.
What's the problem?
It has a push button shifter, and the gear selectors that are push button setups typically we haven't been too fond of. So I'm curious, Jake, what you.
Well, okay, so I mean, we've seen this in some of the other Hyundais we have, but not as bad as what we saw in the Lincoln.
No.
The Lincoln Corsair.
Okay.
I mean, so Lincoln's been kind of goofy with like these piano key shifters, and you kind of
they're all about horizontal styling. That's what they say.
Right. So I think we got a new different level now with the Lincoln Corsair, which is their small luxury SUV. It's a bar. It's like a metal bar that goes across, and you got to touch the right part of the bar in order to shift gears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like violin versus guitar, no frets.
Right.
You just have to like find the sweet spot to make the right.
Well, no, there's frets actually when you think
okay.
about it. So I think, that's basically how it works.
It's a little silly. Yeah.
It's a lot silly.
But if we're talking about the Corsair, I mean, the interesting thing, we had a discussion with the Lincoln folks yesterday, and they really didn't want to admit the fact that it's, whether you say it's based on the brand new Ford Escape or it's using the same platform as the Ford Escape. They really didn't want it. They wanted to ignore that vehicle even exists. But the bottom line is they do share a lot of, they share a platform.
Which may not be a bad thing, so I don't know why you can run away from that.
And it doesn't look anything like the Escape. It looks completely different. And the inside, for sure, the outside definitely looks like a Lincoln. The inside, has this, kind of like tablet-like center screen that juts up from the dash, and then it's got this floating center stack. I mean, so it looks nothing like the Escape. It's very definitely upmarket.
The Corsair, it's supposed to be, it's style. It's
a luxury compact SUV.
And obviously we haven't driven it, but I mean, like Lincoln does do really well in quietness, and that's what they were really touting. They want this kind of like luxurious, very, very quiet. And when you look at, Escape, I don't know why I'd run away from the new Escape. We haven't driven that yet either, but I mean, Ford does know how to do ride and handling. So I mean, they have done some really, even the outgoing Escape is a great vehicle to drive.
Right. And if we're transitioning to the Escape, I mean, the Escape, I mean, the thing with
which is also here.
It's also here, brand new, and it was a great driving vehicle, especially in terms of the handling. But its fuel economy was really way behind some of the top competitors.
And it needed to also get some redesign because it was behind in some of the crash tests as well.
Right. That's right. And some advanced safety systems weren't even available.
It's just an older car.
Right. Yeah. So now it's brand new, completely redesigned. Doesn't look anything like the old Escape.
It's like a kinder, gentler Escape.
Yeah, it looks very happy.
It looks very actually. You know what? They probably got the old things from Mazda. Right, Mazda's kind of walked away from the real happy grin, and now they've given it to Ford.
And so what's interesting about that is that they've gone away from, so the base engine is still a 1.5 liter turbo, but it's a 3-cylinder now instead of a 4-cylinder. And obviously the goal there is to get better fuel economy.
And then they'll have cylinder deactivation because 3 might be too many.
Exactly, they can
it's
deactivate.
the same 1 liter that was in the old Fiesta,
so
right?
it's a 1.5.
It's a 1.5, so it's slightly larger than that.
Right.
Okay.
So
50% larger.
Yeah.
So we haven't driven this one yet. We've driven their 1 liter 3-cylinder, but not their 1.5 liter. They're still going to have a 2 liter 4-cylinder turbo as well. But it's just kind of interesting. That 3-cylinder actually makes about the same power as the outgoing 4-cylinder 1.5 liter turbo. So that's kind of interesting. And we don't have fuel economy numbers yet, but hopefully it will be considerably better.
It's very car-like, I gotta say. I mean, you look at Escape over the years, it used to be very truck-lit, and it was very like 2-box.
Right.
And it's just kind of, I mean, well, they're getting rid of the Focus, they're getting rid of the Fusion. It's almost like this is a car now.
It's a tall car, kind of?
Yeah, it kind of looks like that. It's very, very, soft styling. So
I remember when they said, okay, people who want something that looks a little more car-like, there's the C-Max for them. Nobody wanted that.
No.
So, but it's also.
I think people want truck-looking things.
It's
I'm just going to throw it out.
It's funny. It's like people want trucks. Speaking of things that people want that look like trucks, the Hyundai Venue.
Oh my God! So this is not a truck.
No,
but it looks like a truck.
No.
Front-wheel drive only, right?
Yep.
I mean,
it's based on the Hyundai accent.
It's smaller than the Kona, which is hard to believe.
It's smaller than the EcoSport. It is a small.
I'm going to throw this out. Brilliant. Because what they did was, I mean, right. So it's based on, I mean, they're tiny subcompact, right?
And they're getting rid of the accent hatchback and
so,
replacing it with
so instead of an accent hatchback, which I mean everybody wants a subcompact hatchback, they make it look like a little trucklet, unlike what Ford Escape is done to doing, and I think it's gonna be very successful.
Do you know what it reminds me of?
Really inexpensive. We got in the back of the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually roomy.
I could fit in it. No, tons of headroom. It's boxy.
Now
it made me feel old because they said that it's designed for Gen Z. And I'm used to being catered to, and now all of a sudden it's like, we don't care about you.
That's exactly how it works.
I demand. It's terrible. I'm so demanding. No, but one of the cool things about it is that it's designed sort of as a first car for new drivers, and it's supposed to be pretty inexpensive. It's supposed to start under like $19,000, which is around where the Kona is, and it comes with a ton of standard safety features. So it's kind of aimed at these people who don't have as much.
Very smart.
You can get a manual transmission.
Yeah,
I know.
So I predict the same thing's going to happen with any other car that gets aimed at a super young audience, is that older people are going to buy it.
I mean, like the Scions?
Exactly. And,
yes.
And Honda Element.
Right.
And I think that's okay because it's affordable, it's versatile, it's easy to park, it's exactly what you...
Easy to get in and out of.
So let me have one variation on that. It will be bought by young people when it's used.
When it's used?
It's used, which is awesome, again, because here's a vehicle that's going to sell at a low price. It's got the standard safety stuff. When it hits the used car market, now you've got a car with standard safety stuff that's going to be inexpensive. And the same thing with the Scions. I think there's young people buying them in the used car market.
It used to be you'd get Grandma's Oldsmobile or Grand Marquis. Now it's going to be you're going to get Grandma's Venue.
Exactly.
That's an interesting car. So speaking of small SUVs, I'm going to go through a bunch now, the other stuff that we've seen. But like the Q3, speaking of affordable too, the Q3 starts at like under $35,000.
Yeah.
New Audi. What do you think?
Well, I mean, look, it's aimed right at the right part of the market. I mean, everyone is right. It's like the check marks, right? Everyone wants a luxury. They want SUVs, and they want something affordable too. So I mean, this subcompact like luxury SUV is kind of this burgeoning market. Everybody who has one. The problem is not many of them are very good.
Right.
This has got kind of the bones that it can be a really good player.
And a lot of them do end up being pretty expensive. So it's nice that
Right.
they're, if they are trying to keep the price down, and hopefully it'll drive pretty well, and it'll be a legitimate contender.
It's hard to get all those things: luxury,
really
and
is.
SUV, and affordability. They probably have a good chance of doing it just because they've got great platforms
Right.
that are quite luxurious, even if you get like a Jetta or a Golf.
Right. If you look at our, the road test scores for those vehicles, they're actually really not that high usually, for our ratings, because they're just typically not great vehicles. They're
Right.
okay, but
All-
they're not great.
in that class.
In
They're a
that
little
class.
loud.
And actually, the
they're
Q,
a little,
and the Q3,
ride's
the
a little
outgoing
rough.
Q3, which is like a pretty old vehicle, does real quite well in that class as it is.
Right.
So high
so it
hopes
can
for
only
that
get
one.
better.
Right.
I bet there'll be a lot of lease specials on that, I predict. At the other end of the spectrum, Mercedes GLS. They're finally trying to make this into their flagship, I
They
guess.
want this to be the
Sure.
S-class,
The S-class
of
of-
SUVs.
That's
yeah.
the S. It ends in an S,
Yeah.
right? That's the
Yeah.
new naming convention. The last letter matches their sedans. But big, brawly, powerful, all that stuff.
Yeah,
V8.
great. Yeah.
I was actually a little surprised. I was expecting like some V6 with a whole bunch of boosty
V8
things.
with a mild hybrid.
Right, so they're
48
doing the
volts.
mild hybrid thing, which is, a way to, get maybe a little bit better fuel economy. More than anything,
Double
Big-
digits.
It's like
Yeah.
two Big Macs with a Diet Coke. You know what I mean? Come on.
But
Mild hybrid
but
V8.
the point is of the 48 volt is that when you're doing the stop start, the engine stop start, that it's still going to be able to keep the AC at full
Right.
full volume and everything, and so that's kind of where they're going with that. And
But big, luxurious.
It's
The back row can fit someone who's up to 6'4", they say.
heated seats in the third row
Yeah.
seat. Yeah,
This
yeah,
is not
yeah.
a third row this is a third row that you can actually
Right,
put
right.
full-grown people in, and they won't be upset
Sure.
by it.
Yeah.
Or you could just get a minivan.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you can buy two minivans.
So at the total other end, there's a new Yaris and a new Versa, and those are at this show. They seem to be slightly improved, more active safety features. They're not, they're not as old and as dated as their predecessors.
right, I mean the
Yeah.
Yaris hatchback is basically just a the Mazda 2 based.
Right.
Now they made the Yaris sedan was Mazda 2 based. Now they're making their hatchback Mazda 2 based. So that's basically just the same thing as the sedan, just a hatchback. So
And
it
the
should be
new-
good.
And the new Versa gets all the active safety that it didn't have, which is actually pretty good for the class.
Overdue update.
Oh, it's been years. It's been
Yes.
years.
That
so.
was not a great car. Hopefully this one's at least a little bit better.
Right.
And one car we haven't talked about yet, Cadillac CT5.
Mm-hmm.
Now this isn't replacing the CTS, maybe.
Again, we have some discussions with manufacturers when we come to these shows. We had a discussion, and it was a little confusing. Jake, you can probably explain it a little bit better than me, but it is replacing the CTS. It's
Well, sort of.
sort
I
of.
mean,
they're changing their naming structure completely. So
well,
they're
because
gonna
it's
have-
confusing. Because I mean,
yeah.
the CTS wasn't clear. Does that go against the BMW 5 Series or the 3 Series? It's kind
They
of
were
in
always
there.
sort of
in between.
in-betweener, yeah.
And I think they're done with that.
They're trying
So-
to. They said they don't want to do the tweener thing
So
anymore.
CT5, think 3 Series BMW, think C-Class Mercedes-Benz.
And it's only a little shorter than the CTS.
Right, so it should have a decent, I mean, it looked like it has a decent rear seat room, which is nice in this class. I mean, we saw what I keep on thinking about I won't call it the Hyundai, but the Genesis G70 that we tested, which
Right.
is kind of this new entry in that class, and it's got a terrible rear seat. So it's nice to have something that you could actually seat 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, I wanted to go sit in the back seat this morning, but it's up on a stand, so I couldn't get into it. It does have a pretty, you think I could climb. I didn't want to get chased out of the show, but it has a
Again.
pretty dramatically sloped roof.
Yeah.
So I'll be
It's like a
curious.
fastback,
I'll
basically,
I'll
yeah.
be curious, how the headroom is. Maybe the legroom will be good, but I'm curious about the headroom. But I didn't sit in it. But it does look pretty
And
cool.
I
The
expect-
trunk is smaller than the CTS too.
And I expect it's gonna. I mean, look, the latest cars from Cadillac. I mean, they drive really nice. They ride really nice. It will have Super Cruise in it, not at launch, but that will come. So that's
Yeah,
all
they're,
kind of cool.
they're saying sometime in calendar year 2020.
And that's not something you can get from the 3 Series, the A4,
No.
any of those.
Correct.
Yeah. So
And the other big thing is, will it be reliable when it comes out at launch? That's a big thing with.
Yeah,
we're
that's
hoping
what's
so.
holding
It's
it on
holding
back.
Cadillac back.
Yeah.
and holding back the CTS, which is a car that we otherwise really like.
That's right.
We
And
like to drive
CT6.
it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, favorites.
Sure, I'll start. So
You've been holding this in the whole time.
I've been so normally we don't talk about concepts, but there is a concept at the show that I was pretty impressed with. So Volkswagen had showed a concept that I liked originally. I like the Honda Ridgeline a lot, I mean, and we talked about this before, kind of like, hey, why did you make a car and make it look like a truck? Why not like a pickup truck? So this is what the Honda Ridgeline is. Volkswagen had showed a pickup truck before that was based on like their larger Atlas.
That was the Tanoak.
Who knows how to pronounce it?
So now they showed the let me try it. Let me try to get Tarok. And actually, so this is think of it kind of like a Tiguan-based pickup truck. So they're showing us a concept. This will go into production. I mean, obviously they'll change it a little bit in other markets in South America.
So yeah, Brazil is where it's going to be made there, yeah.
But they are showing it here because they're kind of gauging this reaction, whether or not they can actually sell it in the U.S. market. It's like the old Chevy Avalanche.
It's basically a smaller Chevy. So they're bringing back the Chevy Avalanche.
But car-based, So, but I think
the seat folds down so you can, the rear seat folds down so you can have extra cargo room to slide along things in, like the Avalanche.
Yeah. So I think it's a really cool idea. I did have to talk to I think 5 different people at the Volkswagen stand to try to figure out how to pronounce it.
So it's for those who like Tarok.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
excellent.
That's how you remember how to pronounce
Wonderful.
it. That's exactly right.
Tarok.
Yeah. Okay.
What did you like?
So for me, it's really more about an exhibit that I really liked because we come to the car shows and we're mostly concerned as journalists. What's the latest car that we can tell everyone out there about? But I think when you come to a car show as a regular civilian, you want to look at these new cars and sit in the new cars, but you also want to be kind of wowed by some of the exhibits. And for me, it was the Nissan exhibit with the GTR and the 370Z, but not because of the new GTR and 370Z so much, but they have all these old Skylines there and an old 240Z, and honestly, they look so fantastic. They didn't even do it's kind of a very industrial kind of display, but it is just so cool that those cars are there. If you're an enthusiast of the Skylines, you're going to want to go check that out because they just look so awesome.
And they're up in the air. You can walk underneath. I saw a guy, he's looking and checking. It's you can see him like you'd really never see him before.
You see people walking by him and going, I actually heard a guy say, I would give anything to have this car. That's what he said. I was walking by and that's what he said. So
very cool. I like the Venue, and I don't just like it because it's
you mean
sort
this
of,
Venue?
Oh yeah, the Javits is great.
God, it is
no, I like the Hyundai Venue. What I like about it is that they put these details on it that I think that small affordable cars deserve. So they put this kind of interesting pattern on the rear bumper. You can get denim trim. You can get two-tone. The lights are kind of squared off. It reminds me of the Fiat Panda, which is another car it's really affordable, really basic. We don't get it here in the U.S., but it has style to it. And why should you be stuck with something that's kind of ugly and cheap looking just because you don't have a lot of money?
Well, they clearly put some real effort into this. This was not just like, let's just get it out and have
and
a
it was
cheap small
packed.
car.
Of all the cars at the show that we had trouble getting a chance to film, that one we had to book a time, and even then, like 5 people were trying to film the car at the same time. And that hasn't happened at a car show in a while, especially for a car that starts under $20,000.
Sure,
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that wraps it up for today. But next week, very special episode, 200th episode, and we are filming it in New York live in front of a studio audience. And you better watch because it's going to be incredible. So thanks so much, and we'll talk cars with you again soon.